Hello and welcome back to Season 4 here at oNiD. We're here for Round 5 of the Hound GT3 Transatlantic Showdown on iRacing. It's been a thrilling championship so far, and as we're in the second half in the European leg of the series, we're coming down to business. America leads Europe 355 points. Now, if Europe want a chance to win in the final round, they will need a good result here, one that they've not had since their opening round at Daytona. Luckily for them, it's something a little bit different for this week. Weather is on their side as we head to the Nurburgring Grand Prix circuit. It is a bit damp, and as we get into qualifying, we've already got a little different selection of tire compounds up and down the grid. Joining me as always to take us through this evening, it is the wonderful Aidan Hard. How are you doing?
There have been many other adjectives other than wonderful that have been used to describe me, but it is good to be here nonetheless. Thank you for that, Scotty. Indeed, weather, well, very much split decisions. I can actually tell you we are going into qualifying now as we speak. Times are being set. Drivers are out for their private qualifying, quarter of an hour time limit, but if you set 3 laps, that is your qualifying done and dusted. A couple of cars out on laps at the moment. The first one to start their lap looks to be a Mr. Mike Pipers in the Acura, the Honda Acura. Split decision, well, I say split decision, 3 drivers risking the dry tyres. There is rain and the track does look to be slightly damp, a little bit of spray being kicked up there by Mike Pipers, but his first car this will be the first driver to start a flying lap, I do believe. No, I stand corrected. Stefan Gambi, should I say, as Ben 22 Races was subscribed for 51, 12, 24, 30, 46, 48, 4 years and 4 months. 3 months. 4 years, 3 months. I can do maths. Thank you, Ben. Welcome. Thank you for dropping by. As the first flying lap we have on... Well, starting the first flying lap is Gambi here. No, but I stand corrected. It's Joe Pinder and Alex Shahabi, who are actually just coming up to the line. As any great commentator, should be able to read data correctly. It is Shahabi who's going to come to the line on the wet tyres. On a very damp, kind of intermediate circuit. There's no intermediate tyre here on iRacing. It's either wet or dry. Make your mind up and hope for the best. 209.2 is benchmark Staver. Pretty much coming across the line at the same time. The setting of 209.9. Bloomquist gets there with a 0.486. And Aidan Carton then gets in there with a 6.33. Times are coming in thick and fast as people are setting their lap times.
Noah Osbaldeston, the first driver to set her lap on the dry tyre. 5.6 seconds off, has immediately returned to pits. I think it's going to put on a set of wet tyres and has done so indeed, realising the strategy hasn't quite worked out. According to the time screen, there is no rain at the moment, but the track sufficiently damp. We can see the little bit of spray coming off the tyres and from the diffuser of these GT3 cars, just making it a little too slippery for the dry tyres. Maybe if they had the full 15-minute session to dry the track out, maybe it would just be enough, but the limited 3 laps that the drivers are allowed, just not enough, as we can see some of the weather information on the right-hand side of your screen. We're currently watching Sean McArdle come around the final corner to complete their first flying lap. 11 times in at the moment. Where will Sean put themselves? They'll be down in P11, 4 seconds off the pace, so struggling to find a bit of confidence. Stefan Gambi, who since the start of their lap, pops themselves up to P8, 2.7 seconds off the pace, and we'll start to see some of the second flying laps come through now. Jared Page just completing their first flying lap, somehow not improving in the 4th sector based on their out lap, I believe. With these sort of not full wet conditions, drivers will need to be a little bit careful to not burn up and damage the wet tyre, not to overheat it. Jared Page 5.9 seconds off the pace, not getting in front of Noah, who remember set that initial time on the slick tyre. Runner Bertolfsson will bump up to P6. Thomas right now across the line, driver that's been very competitive this season, not to the top of the timesheet, 74 thousandths off the top time. Evan Blomqvist, fastest in the first sector, will be 2 tenths off. Ivan Orlov will go P8, and Aidan Carter, fastest in the 3rd sector, will go to the top of the timesheets, 2-minute 9.026, not far off getting that sub 2-minute 9. Who will be the first of our drivers to get through there? Some of our drivers now starting their final laps. Mike Pfeiffer's up to P6, immediately displaced by Ben Royal, who themselves is immediately displaced by Daniel Chavez, driver who's been very quick this season as well, down in P6. I think he'll be a little disappointed with that one. Get a little further up. Noah Osbaldeston coming through to complete their first lap on the wet tyre, I believe, but I think they've invalidated that lap.
Yeah, that was invalidated, so they're going to go again. And will hopefully set a more representative lap time. And Nigel Stark still risky on the dries. He's down in 20th position with 22 runners this evening. Following this qualifying session, the usual 70-minute race, I have been reliably informed that tyres are going to be okay if they are on the wet tyre. Setups are fixed, and no setups are more based for dry weather running, so do keep an eye out if it does get wet. The terrain does start to fall again. Things are going to get a bit twitchy with some of these drivers. They may have to be a bit more careful with their left and right feet.
Through the chicane now. is Jarrett Page, who improving in the first and third sectors, not in the second and fourth sectors. Though, so we still wait for two drivers to set their first valid flying lap of Ben Holmes and Philip Staples. Philip, one of the drivers, still committing to dry tyres. I've also just noticed top of the timing sheets, Aidan Carter is going to try the slick tyres for their final flying lap. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to improve. Ben Holmes now out of the final corner. They did invalidate their first lap, so this will be their second flying lap. First time on the board, it's 13th, 2.4 seconds off the top of Aidan Carter, who's just had an off-track scene there. So that slick tyre adventure not working out for them, though I'd say little lost in these conditions. As we, Ivan Orlov completing, not improving this lap. We're currently looking at Aidan Carter, who is continuing on, but is not improving, as Ray Shore now bumps themselves up to P11, just missing out on the top 10. Ben Royal improves, but stays in 7th place. Noah Osbaldeston setting personal bests all throughout the board will bump themselves up to P6, 1 second off the top. It sells nicely in between Peter Stather and Daniel Chavez. A lot of drivers completing their final laps now. Stefan Gamby improving in all 3 sectors on their final lap here, currently in P9. So they are 1.8 seconds off the top through the slow speed chicane that we're using for the lap, more commonly used by single-seaters, but the one are that of choice for this evening. And now into the final corner. Long right-hander. Don't need the best of exits. The finish line or timing line isn't too far down the straight. As up to the line now, we'll set another personal best, and I'll bump them up to P7 now, just in front of Daniel Chavez, who's bumped all the way down to 8th place. Jarrett Page going to be one of our coming through to complete their final lap again. Personal best in all sectors up until now in the Ford Mustang. Can they get a good run through the final corner and maybe bump themselves a couple of positions, trying to find some confidence in these drying conditions? But up to the line now. Doesn't improve in the final sector, does close up to Fortoy, but not enough to get themselves out of P20. Ben Holmes aborts their final lap, having a little practice of the pit entry, and Thomas Wright, one of our strong competitors, personal best in all but the 4th sector, bumps themselves in front of Al Shahabi, but not enough to take pole position. They'll have to settle for 2nd place.
Orlov comes to the line. Is it going to be improved from him to 14th up to 12th? Finds 2 more places. Nigel Stock also jumping up to 60th as well. Philip Staples sets a lap time, is on the dry tyres. That's brave, as the rain again now starts to fall. Mike Pipers, I think, is just coming to the line as we jump to him. Indeed it does. It's not an improvement. Stays per Berton for Terry. Also comes to the line from 20th. Is it going to be an improvement? I don't think it is. Only other cars left on the lap are Stefan Gamby, McArdle, Staples, Pfeiffer's going for another lap. He may, but I think he's got another lap in. No, that's his final lap done and dusted. So this will just be an exploratory session for him. As you can see, that rain is now starting to fall once more. So any time that can be gained, I think is going to be quickly washed away by the precipitation here at Nurburgring.
Yeah, Stefan and Mike Pfeiffer's have completed all 3 of their laps, but they're continuing on to explore the conditions of the circuit, try and get a little more familiar with them. 2 people who are on laps, so is Sean McGardle, who has just gone off track and will have invalidated their final lap, as well as Philip Staples, one of our drivers, to try out the dry tyre gamble. They waited until later on in the session, hoping the track would dry, trying to get the best of the track conditions at the end of the session. Unfortunately, it has not worked out for them as the rain has started to fall. And so it's unlikely that they'll be able to improve too much. Well, there's still all personal bests in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd sector from Philip Staples, but it is quite a way off the top times, losing. They're down by 2.5 seconds as of the 3rd sector. of the fourth sector, 2.9 roughly down on Aidan Carter. So maybe might be able to get a couple of positions depending on how good this final sector is. But Philip Stables round the final corner now. Last of our drivers to set a qualifying time. Up to line, it will be a 2:12.3. It will be enough to put themselves up to P20, just missing out by 0.04 of a second on Joe Pinder. But yeah, Philip Stables will save themselves from the back row of the grid with those slick tyres.
Yeah, he's not going to be able to set another lap, and he'll, I'm sure, shortly return to the pits. But as we can see, the rain is starting to fall. The qualifying is over. We've only got one more minute left to go before qualifying ends, so we'll just take a brief pause. I think actually Philip's gone to manage to go and return the car back to the pits. Just to wait for the session to come to an end, we will then go through our race our grid for this race 1 70-minute race here this evening here at Nurburgring. As we said, if the rain continues and the dry tyres don't see the day of light, it is going to be an easy one-stop race, and I've been told that you can get away without having to change tyres onto new wets if the rain continues to fall. Changeable conditions here, as we've seen already. I'm sure that will be the same as we go into the race.
Will be, but what will the exact conditions be? That is the question for all our drivers. They'll have to explore it when they get back out onto the track and head round for the first racing laps. Just about ready for the drivers to start gridding up, and the track is looking much wetter than it was in qualifying, but this is the order they'll be setting off to challenge these wet conditions.
Absolutely. Aidan Carter taking pole position, 209.0 from Thomas Wright, Shahabi, Balloonquist, your two front rows. Staver, Osbolston, Gamby, Chavez, Roland Pifers make up your top 10. Cleaver, Orlov, Bottleson, Scorer, Holmes, Stock, Morgan, McCardle, Pinder, Staples, for Terry and Page, making up your 22 car grid for this evening, the penultimate round, I do believe, of the Hound GT3 Transatlantic Showdown. As the cars are now taken to grid.
Yeah, the little championship update in the overall for the drivers. Thomas Wright leads the way 6 points ahead of Daniel Chavez, but Thomas Wright is up in P2 on the grid. Daniel Chavez down in P8. Our pole sitter, Aidan Carter, sits third in standings, 19 points off the top. So they'll be hoping to get themselves a little more towards the front. No, Osbolston is in P4 in the championship. They start P6. And Alex Shahabi, 5th in the championship, 26 points off the top, starts in P3. So plenty of opportunity with these mixed conditions. The question is, how much will the drivers struggle? We've seen some of them really struggle with the balance of the cars and the fixed setups that they have to run on the rounds so far. We've seen that at Silverstone. And all the rounds really so far, that was in the dry conditions. Now the rain has fallen. How much of a challenge will it be for these drivers for 70 minutes as the conditions change and evolve? Drivers will have to do the best they can, especially those in the title fight, especially those representing Europe, if they want to close down that 355-point gap at the top. It's an American 1-2 on the front row, but Europe takes the next, locks out the next 2 rows, second and third rows. They come out of the final corner now and will be away for the 5th and penultimate round of our Transatlantic GT3 Showdown.
Aidan Carter gets away very early. Thomas Wright West kept sleeping there. Shahabi looking at the outside line. Greenquist is also side by side down to turn 1 as well. So it's 3 wide with Staver also wanted to get involved as well. Somehow they just about managed to get through turn 1 reasonably cleanly. Pifers, for some reason, is shown in first. That is completely inaccurate. We will just keep an eye on that. I think he's actually returned to the pits as there's a lead change between Carter and Wright very briefly, side by side, going into the middle sector. There's a big puddle there as they turn in for that right-hander, and they get back on the power down into the second sector. Side by side, Shahabi, Oswaldson, Staver in the background, and there's a gap between himself and Chavez for sixth position. Shahabi trying to make a move. Side by side, bitter contacts between the McLaren and the Ferrari, but they'll now eventually figure themselves out and go to single file down to the hairpin.
It's been a brilliant start for Noah in the McLaren, up 3 places into the top 3, but Alex Shahabi trying to come back, looking to the outside of the hairpin, but has left the door open for the Porsche of Peter Stather, who's going to slot down the inside, but isn't going to have the momentum nor the traction on the exit, and Alex Shahabi should fend that one off, but they're still going to be side by side as they come up to the Schumacher S's. The Porsche trying to keep a nose alongside, does so, and tags around Shahabi, and the Mustang having to take avoiding action as well. That's Daniel Chavez, one of our championship contenders, in disaster for the 3 of them. Peter Stather off into the grass, dropping down the order as a very awkward collision. Shahabi, quite a bit of damage. They're losing out to see, but there is the replay, just a bit of overlap. Stather on the curb. And yeah, unfortunately for Chavez, losing out a couple of spots as they get involved. Here's replay. Shahabi, I think, just trying to put the power, trying to squeeze the Porsche out, but the Porsche was still there alongside. And then, yeah, eventually no space left for the Porsche, and the two would come together.
Well, Alex is still continuing. He hasn't been shown the meatball flag, so it's going to continue. However, the leaders up ahead are still fighting away. Thomas Wright now looking to the outside line for turn 1. Oswaldson, the top 3 have broken away after that incident, and nearest was Bloomquist in 4th, a good 4 seconds down from the lead.
Yeah, having to avoid that instant, losing a bit of time, leaving the top 3 to fight amongst themselves. Looks like they've had more issues, but Tolson now, the one dropping down the order. They were just in front of Alex Shahabi, so hopefully not more contact for them. And they're off at T1 in the runoff, and in the gravel, they'll get going again. Peter Stather also having issues. I think it's the drivers running so wide in T1 that they're triggering one of the sort of split points later on after the arena section. But here is the replay of Batolson on the brakes, and just completely collected from the oNiD Hound. Was that?
That was Ben Holmes, yeah. Just following behind and just unfortunately got completely blindsided. So Ben Holmes makes a move, car breaks ahead of him, and then tries to take avoiding action at the last moment, realising he's going too deep. And that's contact.
That is contact indeed. Meanwhile, further at the front, Noah continuing their strong start up into second place ahead Thomas Wright, and will try and put the pressure on Ian Carter, but Ian Carter, with that overtake, has used the opportunity to open up a little bit of comfort margin. 8/10 now, the gap between the first two, after being under quite a lot of pressure from on the first lap from Thomas Wright. So seem to be struggling a little bit compared to the two behind them. But yeah, with them swapping positions, has opened the gap out a little bit now. Another thing mentioned, if you didn't recognise at the start, I believe it was Mike Pfeiffer's and certainly Ivan Orlov started on the slick tire, which is why they dropped down to the back of the order. Going to be a bit of a recovery drive for them as we cut back to Daniel Chavez. Lost a couple of places from that instant between Shahabi and Stather. Is now trying to make them back up and past Ben Royal for P6 now. Is trying to get the move done on Stefan to come out of the final corner, heading towards T1 in the slipstream, closing up. Will they be able to make a move into T1?
I'd find out. Outside line potentially. No, I think he stays put, and almost makes contact. Does have to take a bit of avoiding action to avoid running into the back of the Porsche. In the background, Joe Pinder and Charlie Morgan fighting away. We'll just see what's happening here, and that's going to be inside line for Charlie Morgan into turn 2. Might be the over-under for Joe Pinder, and he's going to give it a good go. Jesus Christ, almost makes contact.
Meanwhile, at the front, I think a mistake, yes, struggling is Noah Osbaldson. They've lost the place to Thomas Wright, and another mistake just as we cut to them. So they've dropped down to P3. The gap being closed down by Elvin Blomqvist, only 1.7 seconds now. There it was 4 seconds just about a lap ago. And see, just getting onto the white line as they're braking for the left-hander. Really unsells the car, no grip on the curb, and so runs out wide. Now 2.3 up to Thomas Wright in second. So they're going to have to sell down and sort of try to cut out those errors if they want to catch back up to the top two.
Indeed. Again, fixed setups. I've been told these setups are aimed for dry weather running. So there's no chance to change ride height or suspension or anything in the cars. It's all fixed apart from the fuel tank, is my understanding, and potentially maybe some alterations on the tyre pressures as well. We'll go down to 80th positions. Baton for Terry fighting away with Runar Bottleson, and I think for Terry gets overtaken there by Bottleson for 17th position. Just came to that right at the last moment. It's a quick replay. I think it's a very textbook move. Later on, it breaks around the outside, potentially wears a little bit more grip, stays in the middle of the corner, avoids the apex, and goes, yep, that's my position, and thank you very much.
Nice clean move there. As Butofson, remember, was further up the grid, but had that moment with Ben Holmes into T1. Speaking of T1, here is Stefan Gamby trying to fend off Ben Royal. Daniel Chavez has got past and deep into turn 1 for the Porsche. Does give the opportunity for McLaren. Is now going to try to hang it round the outside of T2. Long left-hander, certainly possible in the rain, and doesn't get the move done, does Ben. And this is allowing Matt Cleaver to close in on the pair of these two. In the Honda, look at the slipping and sliding in the background is another instant at T1, this time with Bertolfsson once again in for Toy. Bertolfsson now with a meatball flag.
See how this unfolds, and I have a feeling it may have just been maybe a little bit of late breaking. Oh no, onto the white stuff, goes sliding and clouts the inside. That is unfortunate. If that's given Bottleston a meatball flag, that is you can see only saw in his car, just saying, got a glimpse of the right front wheel not turning at all.
Very, very unfortunate for Bertolfsson. 2 instants, neither their own fault being taken out into T1, and it has completely ruined their races. They're struggling to make their way back round. Jared Page coming up to pass them now.
Yep, indeed. And if we wait for him to turn in, you'll see that front tyre is turning on the left side, but on the right, if we do get another camera shot, is just not moving. Ben Royals had an incident, he's off.
This at turn 5.
What in the world's happened here? Do wonder if he's just got a little bit greedy on the right foot. It is.
Yeah, sorry, turn 10 that is. Left-hander. Yeah, just a little greedy with the throttle. We've seen people struggling with the rear end. Yeah, maybe running traction control or just not adapting to the traction control on the setup. As front of the field, Aidan Carter getting more comfortable, saying fastest lap of the race. But meanwhile, Noah showing difficulty, was showing good pace to start the race, but 2.5 seconds slower than Aidan Carter that last lap, and 9/10 slower than Elvin Blomqvist that lap. So Elvin really closing in for P3, but an issue for Alex Shahabi has dropped him out of the top 10 now and has dropped them down to P12. 2:19 for them that lap, so 9 seconds off the pace.
Nasty, absolutely nasty. They'll try and regain that position, I am sure, but for now we'll have to just lick their wounds a little bit. Elvin Blomqvist getting close to Noah here, who was fighting for the lead, let's not forget, and is going to try and fight it out for 4th position. But on for Terry, showing as having an incident, and he's off at turn 1. Not the first time we've seen a driver down into turn 1, going deep potentially, and we'll have let's have a quick look at what happened here. He goes down past the start finish. I have a feeling maybe dipping a wheel onto the white line. He does it. He did it again. He's done it before, and it's just caught him out once more. That's into the barrier as well.
Quite a heavy impact on the front end. We'll have quite a bit of aero damage. Luckily, the suspension will be okay from that. Yeah, unfortunate for them. Elvin Blomqvist with an issue coming out of the Schumacher S's. Going slowly, dropping down to P7. Remember, was right on the tail end of Noah in P3.
Yes.
And so has lost about 13 seconds here. Here's the replay up through the Schumacher S's. Through the right-hander. Just, I think, gets onto a puddle there on the apex. And that just spins the car around.
Keeps it out of the wall.
Luckily avoids any contact with the barrier, but does get going, making sure to leave space for the cars approaching, and now fighting to get past Matt Cleaver. That's a car cutting. That's a Chevy of Joe Pinder, I think that is. Falls behind Ben Holmes, having to give up a little bit of time.
Indeed they do. Let's have a look. I think it is Joe Pinder who had to take the shortcut there. I don't quite know why, but it does take the shortcut. He's now fighting back with Ben Holmes here. Maybe these two were fighting and almost getting contact into turn one. Bit of a squeeze there on the apex, but maybe for the final chicane, maybe Joe Pinder feeling that he had to take to the escape road to avoid a bigger incident.
Yeah, we've seen a few drivers get their braking wrong into T1. Maybe it's a similar story up into the chicane. As we see Joe Pinder trying to put the pressure on Ben Holmes, but also has Dryshore not far behind them into turns 5 and 6. Bit of a slide there off the puddle for Joe Pinder, taking a tighter line into turn 6. As we get a little update on the forecast conditions.
From what I can see, it has stopped raining for now. I know it's just started again, ignore me. It says overcast, but we are edging on of quite a high chance of rain here. 96% of weather here is going to be rain, and you can see it's starting to fall once more. And there's puddles. You see the puddles, especially through the Schumacher S's, where they are just bouncing over them, almost aquaplane. We've seen them claim a couple of victims as well. We've seen a couple of cars spin, especially if they are riding that apex curb in the corners. And inside there, we just saw that right-hander. It's just standing water, and it needs to be careful now.
Yeah, with the camber on, I love the corners round the GP circuit here. The puddles form on the apexes, on the inside curbs. Does promote drivers to take a wide line, as we see Joe Pinder, not for the first time, missing their braking point into the chicane, maybe trying to push it just a little bit too far, but they'll certainly get a slowdown for that. That'll allow Shrey to close up a little bit more, and Pinder just falling back from Ben Holmes, won't be getting as much of a slipstream, and that'll make it a little bit easier for Shrey to put some pressure on. Someone else putting pressure on is Charlie Morgan, closing up to Matt Cleaver. Very little to separate them on the last lap, but you can see different lines being used through the first couple of corners by these drivers. Through the long left-hander of turn 2, try and get the power down, and then get the car slowed down once again for turns 3 and 4. Bit of a slide, trying to put down a bit of throttle between the two corners.
Trying to, but again, it's just the puddles, the water build up on the inside. See some of the rivers forming, and that was even the drivers now actively avoiding the inside curbs.
I just want to point out for viewers, I don't think you would see this, but Aiden got his mouse to try and highlight the rivers and puddles on screen.
Yeah, they can't see my mouse, it's fine, it's all good.
It's like the equivalent to a commentator pointing at a screen. That section when the viewers can't see you pointing.
Look, all those cars I'm pointing at with my cursor in the stream can't see. It's fine. You gave me a heart attack. I think I was on stream. What am I doing? It's fine. We're good. It's just what you see. Car.
I trust you enough to not have your cursor on stream. But yeah, last lap around, Thomas Wright's fastest lap of the race, closing 3/10 on Aidan Carter, though Aidan Carter looks to have responded this lap. New personal best for them, and they're 10th quicker than Thomas Wright. So they're just managing that battle. Meanwhile, the battle for P5 has hotted up. I think Stefan's made a little bit of a mistake and has given Elvin Blomqvist an opportunity for P5 potentially as they come to the final corner. Stefan trying to go the long way round to the outside. So Elvin Blomqvist, likely a mistake through the chicane, defending the inside into the final corner, but the Porsche finding grip around the outside is going to take this all the way to turn one. Who's going to be braver on the brakes? It's going to be Elvin Blomqvist, but it's a little too brave. The rear snapping out as they hit the brakes. They'll keep the car on the track, but not without running really wide. And then the Porsche 3, they'll still actually have the inside line as they get to turn 2, but the Porsche hanging it the long way round, but Elvin has the nose in front into turn 3. The Porsche again trying to go the long way round, but this time in a little too deep. And Elvin Blomqvist, despite running really deep with a massive twitch into T1 under braking, does hold on to P5 for now, but Stefan is going to keep the pressure on.
And the lead as well is heating up. Thomas Wright closing on Aidan Carter for position. Now we'll see the last lap times. Best lap time 2:10.3. That is actually the fastest lap of the race, 2:10.3 so far. And Thomas Wright holds that and has actually been rather consistent compared to Aidan Carter's last lap time. 2:10.4 was Aidan Carter's last lap. Thomas Wright only a 10th down. So keeping Aidan honest here is Thomas, but yes, he's leaving my twin sibling from another mother. Actually, keep it at bay, but then has a moment. Oh, that's going to cost him, and that's extended that gap once more, and that's going to be absolutely gutting for Thomas. A mistake there through, not necessarily a mistake, but the conditions maybe getting a little bit better of him as he went through the final chicane.
Just a little too deep on the brakes and using too much of that second inside curve, but Joe Pender finds himself facing the wrong way at the exit of turn 11 onto sort of the back straight that leads up to the chicane, drops him down to 14th place. This is what happened, just a little too much on the inside, got the puddle, and the car started to slide. They tried to correct, but overcorrected into the gravel. Luckily for them, there'd be a gap in the traffic that let them rejoin the circuit. They'll carry on in P14 as a little further in front, Ben Royal is trying to put the pressure on Philip Staples, while Ben Holmes is also trying to put the pressure on Charlie Morgan, who in turn is trying to put some pressure on Matt Cleaver as the battles close up here. You can see Shari new fast personal best lap, and Thomas Wright off the track has made a bigger mistake as well, off into the grass between turns 5 and 6. Will get going again, and luckily with Noah sort of struggling ever since after the first lap, does have that gap behind them, but has taken them out of the fight for the lead. Trying to carry speed into the corner, maybe just a little too tight on the inside on the puddle. The rear end losing grip and sliding the Corvette off into the grass.
Yeah.
Luckily able to get going, but is now 6.5 seconds behind our leader.
Yeah, I saw that coming from a mile away, that puddle clipping essentially the car underneath him, taking it away from him, saying, you know what, you like grip? I don't. Here, have some water. Essentially, so maybe a bit of a learning curve. We go through that same section again, doesn't make the same mistake, and that's going to be Runar Bottleson being lapped by Thomas right there, and after his mistake was unlapped, but then was now able to lap again.
Stack up opening up as we go to that's Charlie Morgan sliding off into turn 10. That looks like a classic clipping the white line on corner entry under braking, and Joe Pinder has also had a mistake, maybe just as Schumacher is a little further back. We'll look at the replay here for Charlie Morgan first. Coming up into the braking zone, look at these white lines. That was ever such a small tap on the white line, just slightly scripted onto it, but was enough to send the car around. And Matt Cleaver now, that was off into the gravel coming out of turn 12, the kink before the chicane.
Right, first saying Joe Pinder that you mentioned. Again, I think it's yes. Oh, wow.
trying to get greedy. White line on the entry to the Schumacher S's makes it all the way to the wall. Luckily, the hit didn't look too heavy, but will have cost them a couple of places. And Matt Cleaver now down to 13th places is what happened to them.
Puddle.
Too much on the inside, aquaplaning on the puddle, trying to catch the slide, but the car overcorrecting the other end, having to do a little bit of a 360 to get back going again, trying not to get in the way too much. Does leave enough space for Ben Royal and Philip Staples to get through. As now going to try and catch up to those two cars in front. Ben Royal still trying to put the pressure on Philip Staples, was actually 1.1 seconds quicker last lap. But we've got a replay here of Daniel Chavez currently sitting in P4, coming into T1, just missing their braking point slightly, running in a little bit deep, but nothing too harmful. Into turn 2, looks to be quite aggressive on the steering. Seems sort of fairly confident in their driving style. They did set a personal best lap last time around, only 2/10 slower than the fastest lap last time around, which was set by our leader, Aidan Carter.
Indeed, I'm going to try something. Let's see if we can look at the driver inputs. We can't see throttle, we can see steering at the very least, and you'll see that it's trying to turn into that left-hander and then goes back to the right again. It's a steering there. Steering trace incredibly twitchy, especially in these cars in these wet conditions. And they are struggling to maybe keep some form of stability.
It'll be interesting if we manage to catch a moment, a slide, and someone trying to correct it with that graphic. If we can get lucky enough with that. But we'll continue on watching this battle further in front of Uri Shore, closing up to Charlie Morgan this lap as well. But we'll stick with this battle as Matt Cleaver just there in the bottom of shot, missing the chicane and for another not first time perhaps, or maybe I'm again slightly confused with another driver, but will luckily keep going as Joe Pinder has had another moment as we look at this replay. Yeah, just not able to get the car slowed down and having to cut the chicane.
And had a crash. Sorry to interrupt, but Noah Osbaldeston having an incident, saying the timing screen says had a crash. Now, what that actually means is probably him going in a bit too deep, and then the triggering saying, and the timing tower thinks he's had a crash. He hasn't. He's just gone a little bit deep. Never mind.
Just iRacing things, but Matt Cleaver, as we cut back instant into T1, I want to say they've just missed their braking point, got onto the white line, and now they're being passed by Sean McArdle going through there, as well as Nigel Stock. But yeah, another costly mistake. Matt Cleaver really struggling with braking at this point, having just missed the chicane on the previous lap into T1 this lap, and runs it in deep, losing more positions. As instant for Ben Holmes, a little further up, was in P7 at the hairpin in wide. I wonder if this is going to be another white line slip up.
About to find out. We watch with observant eyes onto the not on entry, but I think they've just carried a little bit too much speed, and the car goes, "What the hell are you doing? I don't like this. I want to go to the gravel."
Balance are not quite with Ben Holmes. He may be struggling with a little bit of damage too on the front end with their instant with Butolfson a little earlier on, back on the second lap of the race, if I remember correctly. But we now continue to look at Ben Royal, who's still on the tail end of Philip Staples. Philip a little bit deep into the chicane, but does get the second part of the chicane, second apex set up pretty well, and gets a good exit. Ben Royal just held up a little bit as Alex Shahabi, first car to the pit lane, with quite a lot of damage there. Something has happened that we haven't quite caught.
No, sadly, I think he's had that for quite a while. Let's see. Yeah, he's had it here. And he's had it. He hasn't had it. This is what's happened to get that front end damage early in the race. fighting with that Akira McLeod. Oh, onto the... Dear Lord. How in the world he has not got a meatball flag from that shunt? That is remarkable.
The front bumper taking all of the impact and coming straight off the car, saving the suspension. But Alex Abbey deeming the damage too difficult to carry on. Maybe Alex is thinking they can get to the end of the race from here on field, as Ben Royal has taken another adventure into the runoff, this time at turn 5. I imagine it'd be a similar repeat error, or just as they turn in, the car already starting to slide. We'll get a little bit earlier on the moment. Cuts white line there, under braking. Yeah, I think does just get onto the white line again. I see how quickly the car just spins around. Luckily enough space for them to avoid all the barriers, but does cost them.
Yeah, just looking for a better camera angle. You can see, yep, on the right tyres, yep, and he's round.
Yeah, it does drop them back down to P11 now. Of course, they gained from Shahabi pitting and Matt Cleaver's issues as well. They've had a couple as of late, but luckily able to carry on without too much damage. A little further up, Daniel Chavez in P4. Trying to fend off Elvin Blomqvist. Interesting fact, of course, mentioned Elvin joining us for their first iRacing series earlier this season. When was it first or second? I think it was Long Beach they first joined us for in the second round. Of course, now this makes their first wet race on iRacing. Of course, wet weather on iRacing, very unique, very different to any other sim. So even if you're comfortable with wet conditions on Le Mans Ultimate or ACC, for example, it's a very different beast here, something very different to learn. So Elvin Blomqvist adapting very well to the wet weather, running up in P5, did qualify P4, has had a little mistake already so far, but I mean, we've seen quite a few mistakes from other drivers. And yeah, still running reasonably well in P5 as we come back to Nigel Stock, who I believe just recently passed by Matt Cleaver. Here is Matt getting the barrier exit out of T1, slotting down the inside into turn 2.
Yep, that works. That was a nice move there from Matt there, making up some positions after what's a torrid race. I wouldn't say torrid, but it's not gone all his way, let's say.
Nope, certainly has not. Just over 28 minutes into the race, or now 13 laps as Aidan Carter comes across the line. And another mistake for Ben Holmes in P10 is off this on the exit of the Schumacher S's. Trying to get going again. Believe that's a lapped car going past them. Or Ben Royal, I think, got past them. But yeah, mistake there. Here is Ben Holmes into T1. Did they mess up their braking once again, or is this just iRacing lying to us? Maybe a little bit wide, but in these wet conditions, you can get away with that line. Can actually be a little bit better. But here is just again puddle, spins the car around into the runoff, and has a little bump on the wall with the rear end. Very square on, shouldn't be too much damage.
Says Aidan Carter's had a crash, but I'm taking that with a pinch of salt, because I think it was just him going deep into turn 1, and he was lapping car 14, which is Peter Stather, into turn 1 ago. Peter's on the inside, and Aidan, I think, yeah, that's maybe a bit of avoiding action, but not crashing, just going deep into turn 1.
A little bit awkward there. We've held Aidan up a little bit with Stather coming back down the inside, but luckily the gap up to 9.4 seconds. Last lap around for Thomas Wright was a 2:13.3, 3 seconds off their fastest lap of the race, 2.7 seconds off the quickest lap last time around, which was set by Aidan in the lead. So Aidan does seem to be the most comfortable driver out there in the lead, lapping the fastest of all, not of the race, but of everyone on each current lap, and continuing to extend that margin nearly into double digits now. As the fight's further back, drivers trying not to make mistakes, trying to grab a few positions if they can. It looks to me the lap times are certainly getting slower this race. The puddles are looking like they're getting bigger and bigger around the track, as Matt Cleaver has fallen foul of perhaps another one of them down at the hairpin, drops place to Alex Shahabi.
Yes, indeed. He's had a couple of offs, actually. He's had off at the final chicane again. That was last lap. Lap just gone. And then he has another one going down into the hairpin, I think. Again, just maybe a little bit too deep into the corner. Tries to get on the power and rear end. Maybe just tries to spin around on him. He does get going. And continues down in P13.
Yes, so it looks like puddles are growing. The track is getting ever more difficult. Someone, though, who isn't struggling with the conditions and is gaining in confidence is Elvin Blomqvist. Sets a personal best lap of the race and now challenging Daniel Chavez for P4. Looking to the inside of turn 2. Hasn't quite got the move done yet. Is currently the second placed European car in the race, but is trying to make it a 3-4, trying to limit the damage that America is doing, or maybe trying to help close the gap up. Remember, 355 points separates Europe from America, who are leading the way.
There's a seismic gap between the two. It's just, there's actually a possibility, I think, that in terms of Americas versus Europe, I think it's going to be a chance for America actually to wrap up that into that constructors battle per se, actually at this race, if things go all their way.
It certainly is, but think back to the first round. Europe outscored America by 155 points. That is a little under half the gap that there is currently between the two nations. So it is possible. Europe just needs two good rounds, a little bit wide there from the Mustang. The rear end sliding about allows the Ferrari driver of Blomqvist to close up a little bit. They're not able to take advantage of it. We'll go on board with Blomqvist to get a little idea of what the drivers can see through the spray. They get the car twitching through the kink that is normally easy flat out in dry conditions, is quite difficult in these treacherous wet conditions. Through the chicane, looks a little tidier from Blomqvist. Closes up a little bit more into the final corner. You can see the Mustang running a very wide line through the first part of the corner, trying to get that better exit, which they do indeed. Now in the slipstream, you can see how bad the spray is getting. All you can see are those tail lights and the flashing rain lights. Elvin pulling out just to see a reference point, breaking down for T1. Does get the car slowed down, as others have struggled to do so, but just dropping a little bit further back. Our first penalty of the race, Jared Page, who has been struggling with the instant points throughout this season, will have to take a drive through, as we have just, as we're about to come up to the halfway point of the race. I believe this is how they got it. Honda trying to go around the outside, just in a little bit too quick, and is a spin round for Jared Page, reversing off the track to rejoin safely and to not hold anyone else up. They've got Peter Stather not too far in front of them, but of course with that penalty they'll drop behind, perhaps behind Ivan Orlov, 26 seconds, or 28 seconds, sorry, between the two of them. That will be a battle that closes up.
Indeed it will be, and the battle is still ongoing through Schumacher S's. Elvin Blomqvist finding confidence in that Ferrari to try and take it on to the Ford Mustang up ahead of him. It is Prancing Horse versus the other type of horse in the American Ford Mustang, and the tricky thing is, in straight lines, the Mustang's safe. In the corners is where Blomqvist will have to take the battle, but you can't do it right now. So there's another twitch to go through that fast right-hander. That Ferrari is struggling in the corners, where normally it would be their strongest point and the Achilles heel for the Ford up ahead.
Into the final corner once again. You can see the different lines once again. The Mustang sliding a little bit as it tries to put the power down out of the final corner, but it has just got itself a little bit further away, opened up a few car lengths, and was a little bit quicker than Blomqvist last lap, just to give themselves a bit more breathing room into T1. But can Blomqvist respond? Go a little bit quicker this lap as further back Alp Shahabi is trying to make a move to get themselves back into the top 10 after a horrible race with that incident with Peter Stather on the second lap or opening lap. Can't quite remember, to be honest with you. Is trying to fight back with their fellow Ferrari driver Philip Staples, who's getting held up a bit by the McLaren of Vertoy just in front of them. Vertoy will pull over and let the pair of them go, but Shahabi in the slipstream will be closing in through the spray towards T1. Is Shahabi any more confident under braking to make a move? Is looking to the inside. Staples leaves some space, but on the outside is able to hold on to position for now. But Shahabi is going to continue to keep the pressure up, going to try and get a better line through turn 2, get the traction towards turn 3, but it's not quite close enough. Staples running a little bit wide, the rear end sliding around, but keeping the car under control, something Matt Cleaver hasn't been able to do this race and continues to struggle with, losing another place. But it's a great exit out of turn 4 for Shahabi. It'll be round the outside and move done into turn 5 for Shahabi. They'll take P10 with the potential for P9 as Uri Shore just up ahead is off into the gravel at turn 6, will get back onto the track, but not before Shahabi and Staples can take advantage. Here is what's happened to Uri Shore coming through the right-hander. Just tries to pick the power on, but loses traction and has a little spin around, being followed by Ben Royal there. He also gains a place from that mistake. Yeah, Uri Shore dropping out of the top 10 with that mistake at turn 6.
That is a shame. He'll continue, no doubt, but as we pass the halfway mark, it is Aidan Carter leads away from Thomas Wright, Noah Osbaldeston, Daniel Chavez, Elvin Bloomquist, Stefan Gamby, Charlie Morgan, Ben Royal, Alex Shahabi and Philip Staples. Your top 10, Joe Pinder again finding himself off circuit, is able to rejoin. Let's just see what's happened here, and I have a feeling. Oh, it's on entry. Dips a wheel on the curb. That'll do it.
Slow trudge out of the gravel. Down in 16th place. It has been quite a struggle for Pinder so far this race, but they're still going. There are other drivers struggling. There may be positions up for grabs for them. Jared Page, mentioned with that penalty, is now in pit lane, serving a pit stop, it seems like. Maybe repairing some damage, maybe getting some new tyres on before they eventually come through to serve what I believe should be a drive-through for the incident points.
It is, however, how many more laps does he have to serve it? Because he's had that black flag for a while. If he doesn't serve it in a set time, it becomes a stop-go. It gets going once more, and I think actually that black flag's now cleared. I do wonder if that was a stop-go penalty that he had to take and then was able to get serviced.
So stop-go penalty then for Page. They'll carry on now, dropping down to 22nd. As mentioned, seeing quite a few mistakes from other drivers. We could see some more. Zane Carter comes round to start the 19th lap of the race, nearly 40 minutes into the race. They've had a little moment here into the chicane. Look at the Acura behind, just on the white line slightly. That Acura missed the chicane, but goes for a little spin, does our leader. Coming through the second part of the chicane, just bounces off the curb. The tyres not on the ground, don't have the traction, and that spins the car around. That brings gap to the lead down to 4.5 seconds. Aidan Carter to Thomas right. Hopefully the tires aren't too damaged from that spin. That could certainly allow Thomas Wright, who of course has had a mistake of their own, to close up. Something else I've just noticed on the timing screen, it gives us the off tracks, I believe, for all the drivers. In and Carter showing up as 1, but Thomas Wright showing up as most of anyone at 10. So Thomas Wright maybe getting on in those instant points. May have to be a bit careful through the rest of the race as they have little flash lights to the Porsche driver in front, and there is the off tracks. Remember, drivers can also pick up instant points for losing control of their car and contact with other drivers. As Joe Pinder, another adventure, this time at the kink, coming up towards the chicane. We've seen how tricky that was when we were watching Alvin Blomqvist. And yeah, just a little too much on the inside through the puddle. We'll go for a 360. Still did out quite nicely, but yeah, losing quite a bit of time down in 16th place. Is still continuing on. No damage to the car done, only to the tires.
And maybe a bit of confidence as well. Wet conditions not suiting. I don't think it's just a Chevrolet issue or a Joe Pinder issue, but either way, 60th place. Well, what we usually see the Connectus Motorsports team up in the top 5 is a very unusual place to see Joe, but he will continue, no doubt. We are now just awaiting for the pit stops to happen, and it is everyone bar in the top 16 bar Alex Shahabi yet to pit. I do believe, however, Pfeiffer, Staver, Orlov all need to pit again. It is now Berton and Vertelli who are still, and Shahabi for that matter, is still in that window to be able to finish the race on just the one pit stop they've done.
Yeah, and after Ian and Carter spin in the lead next lap round, they go 1 second quicker than Thomas Wright. Yep. To open that gap up again, so their confidence hasn't been dented. They've still got good pace in hand. But yeah, meanwhile things settling down as we're into the second half of the race. Gaps opening up with various mistakes from drivers up and down the fields, including our leader. But yeah, it does mean things have settled down. We're currently looking at Ben Holmes, who's trying to close in on Uri Shore. Only gained 2.5 tenths last lap around, but as they're coming up to the start-finish line, we'll see as actually they had a little moment. That was, would that have been Staples or Shahabi, as Charlie Morgan has had an issue. He's dropped out from 7th position as we were watching that replay. Now following on behind Ben Royal.
Yes, let's see what's happened. Through turn 1, into turn 2, onto the brakes. Too much right foot. Yeah. That's going to do it. And he's lost a position or 2 because of it.
Yeah, that's Ben Royal going through there. And likely Charlie will get going without too much time loss. No damage to the car done. But back to the Ben Holmes and Uri Shore battle. It's another 4 tenths gained for Ben Holmes last lap, and it's even more this lap. The gap down to 6 tenths of a second now. Ben pushing on, having had a couple of mistakes, a couple of incidents so far, is getting along. Thomas Wright just dropping down for a moment, but everything seems to be okay for them. They're still carrying on. Gap not changing too much. We're seeing a couple of drivers saying personal bests, even at this stage of the race when a lot of people are struggling a little bit, as Daniel Chavez comes into the pits from P4. But last lap around, Noah Osbaldeston setting a personal best on 11.6. Alex Shahabi setting a 2-minute 10.7, fastest lap for that lap. So Shahabi showing some good pace as they try and recover after that incident with Stather at the start of the race.
Yep, absolutely. Good showing there, continuing and trying to do what they can as Ben Holmes was getting closer to a shore again, but that gap has fallen off as Mike Pfeiffer's lets through Staver.
think my Pipers might be struggling. They look to be sliding, trying to slow the car down in the braking zone for the hairpin there. They've got damage. That rear left is well out of alignment. That car crabbing into the braking zone. That's why it looked like it was sliding around. It's not sliding. It is horribly, horribly crabbing. This is what happened. Coming down into T1, the Mustang of Jared Page just in front loses the car into braking, puts him onto the curb, and then just slams that rear left into the back of Jared Page. Nothing they could do after losing control of the car under braking. Jared Page will obviously take some damage from that as well, but it should hopefully just be bodywork damage, no suspension damage, but it does seem like that has maybe given Jared Page another penalty, unfortunately, but you can see how much Piper's struggling to get the car back. They're going to need to come into the pits and use a quick repair to fix that up. Meanwhile, from the lead of the race, Aidan Carter into the pits. Thomas Wright continues on to take the lead.
Yes, indeed. Noah also into the pits as well. So top three coming into the pit box. There's quite a few cars coming in actually. That is also that's Pfeiffer's coming in the background as well, and that is also Jarrett Page coming in to have another penalty. Yes, Mike Pfeiffer did have a thought. Mike Pfeiffer's car is crabbing so much, you may as well call him Dr. Zoidberg. Yeah, that's a very nerdy reference. I apologise. Thomas Wright takes the lead, even if only temporarily, whilst Aidan Carter's made his pit stop. 27 seconds, give or take, is the gap, and that is very much easily going to be a lead retaken by Aidan Carter when Thomas Wright inevitably has to come into the pit lane. Bloomquist second again will have to make another pit stop, and will again lose out that second position to the cars behind. P8 her, Alex Shahabi fighting away with Charlie Morgan. Into turn one they go, and that is Shahabi holding position for now. Shora comes into the pits for their pit stop as well. As we come to the closing stage of the races, we're seeing the effect of the limited fuel tank. 80% fuel that's what it's limited to. That's all the fuel you can take on these cars for a race, since inadvertently, well, not inadvertently, but purposefully forcing a pit stop for these guys for fuel. It's just a matter of who's going to stop for fuel or who's going to take fuel and tyres. Remember, we have it on good authority that tyres will last a full stint. As Morgan has a big off, and
rear end into the wall, taking that bumper off. That's going to be quite a bit of bodywork damage. Hopefully the suspension is all right. It looked fairly square on the rear, but it'll only be once they get going again they'll feel the full extent of the damage. Maybe just a little bit too much on the inside, on the wetter part of the track. We know those puddles have been on the inside. The puddle looks to have cleared a little bit, but the track's still heavily wet, and Morgan trying to pick up the power with the wheel on the inside will drop them down, currently in 10th place, but a bit of a way to go to pit lane, where they'll probably take their pit stop now, use a quick repair to get that fixed up, and hopefully not cost them too much time. Meanwhile, back at the front, Thomas Wright and Elvin Blomqvist into the pits, and Aidan Carter is going to come by to retake the lead of the race. I was just saying, slight variance in pit stop times. Looks like we've got some people around the 15-16 second mark. That is Aidan Carter, Shahabi, Chavez, all pit stops around those times. But Noah Osbaldeston and Thomas Wright now, both pit stops in the 21-22 seconds, so about 5 seconds longer. I wonder if they've maybe taken a couple of tyres.
Quite potentially. Noah's still able to go back up into third position, should I say. So there's no real change for him after the pit stops. However, Bloomquist has been able to close the gap down to 3 seconds. The gap to lead is still relatively the same, as we see cars chopping and changing up and down the timing tower as Royal Morgan takes their pit stops, and so does Mike Pfeiffer's again, going back into the pits, and then oh no, he's actually gone out, and Mike Pfeiffer's is out.
It's been a difficult race for Pfeiffer's. Fortunately, it will be day done for them as we see more cars coming through the pits. anyone used to LMU had a little jump scare there as
I know.
Cleaver drove
That's
through
like-
Morgan.
No, don't do that. Okay, you're fine.
But yeah, we're seeing most cars through pit lane. The only cars we're still waiting to see through pit lane are Philip Staples, Ben Holmes, Nigel Stock, Peter Stather, Ivan Orlov, and Butolfsson. Of course, Stather, Orlov, and Bertolfsson have been through the pit lane, but that was at the start of this race for damage. They will need to come in again to fill up to the end. And unless they've been mega fuel saving, the wet conditions will allow drivers to go longer into the race. That's why we're seeing pit stops now 50 minutes into the race rather than the normal sort of 40 to 45 minute range. As you can see, everyone on wet tyres as well. Yeah, these conditions not letting up too much. The track does look to be a little bit drier than it was in the middle stage of the race, but it is still far from slick tyre territory.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not going to see slick tyres tonight. I think the full wets will remain out and about, trying to clear the water and giving these drivers some form of grip to drive these cars. And yeah, nowhere near dry running tyres at all.
So we're watching Uri Shore, or we were watching Uri Shore, who was coming up to Charlie Morgan after the pit stops, but he's swapped now to Alex Shahabi. After the pit stops have cycled out, they find themselves in P5, chasing down Elvin Blomqvist and setting the fastest lap of the race while doing so. So Shahabi showing to be the fastest driver out there and is now putting pressure on Blomqvist. How well will Blomqvist soak up the pressure? Will I be able to soak it up like a sponge in these wet conditions? Or will I soak it up like a rock and give way very quickly? It's only then 2.2 seconds up to Noah Osbaldson, so a podium finish still well within reach for Alex Shahabi. But with less than 80 minutes to go, they can't hang around for too much longer. Closing in on Blomqvist, where will they be able to make a move as they come towards the Dunlop hairpin?
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be get past Bloomquist here and then try and make a charge for the P3, which that gap is closed a little bit.
Yeah, Noah's last time, for comparison, was 2:12.3. That's 2 seconds slower than Shahabi's last lap, which, as we said, fastest lap of the race entirely. So, that gap is coming down. Elvin Blomqvist last lap was an out lap, so not quite representative. But you can see how close Shahabi is, the pressure that they're able to apply into the chicane now. How will the run speed through here? Shahabi taking more of the first apex curb, trying to open up the second part of the chicane, get a better exit, but it's pretty even between the two Ferrari drivers. Through the final corner now, similar lines being taken. Shahabi just following in the wheel tracks of Blomqvist, hoping to get a good exit, use the slipstream down the start-finish straight towards T1. You can see there Osbaldson saying a personal best lap, but it is not quicker than the two cars behind them. 4 tenths quicker for Blomqvist, a second quicker for Shahabi. This could be a three-way fight as we get towards the end of the race. 16 minutes to go now.
They're trying to catch everything they can do to try and get up to P3, and it'll be a three-way battle for that third podium position, I reckon, in a few minutes time. Maybe lose about 10 minutes to squabble with each other just to figure out who will be on that final podium position. But for now it is Bloomqvist in a sandwich, let's say, of Osbaldson and Shahabi. Maybe the unwanted filling to the two slices of mechanical bread between them.
The gap continuing to close as we see what will be the last of our pitters who haven't had drama in this race. Nigel Stock just coming to pit exit now, will come out just about in 13th. Might be a bit close. Matt Cleaver will be closing. You can see in the background Matt Cleaver there, but Nigel Stock will hold on to that 13th. It'll be interesting to see if Cleaver is able to close the gap down at all and maybe take a position towards the end. Peter Stather coming through the pits for the second time this race. The first time was to repair damage after that incident with Shahabi at the start of the race. Shahabi fighting at the front while Stather is just trying to make anything of this race, pulling out of the slipstream to the inside into the chicane is Shahabi on Elvin Blomqvist. How hard will Blomqvist fight this? Doesn't seem to be too hard. Shahabi gets the move done. Got the car slowed down on the brakes, got the apex, nice neat and tidy through the chicane, and now has 2 seconds to chase down Noah Osbaldeston for a podium finish.
Replay here, Sean Ricardo apparently having a crash, but is that just him going deep into turn 1? It is indeed. How dare you, Timing Tower, lie to me like this? We'll just go back to the actual fighting and see that Bloomquist is not giving up that fight yet, and Alex, whilst wanting to potentially catch up with P3 up ahead, has still got a Ferrari in his wing mirrors.
Yeah, Elvin Blomqvist, despite losing P4, there still has a chance at P4. Might not necessarily be passing Shahabi, but might be following Shahabi to catch Noah in front of them and to both of them to get past the McLaren driver. As we see, Matt Cleaver was behind Nigel Stock, is still behind Nigel Stock, but with a much bigger gap as they come into turn 10 here. Tries to pick up the throttle and exit. You can see those brake lights come on. That was a sign of losing the rear end. Car going for a spin in these slippery conditions, and unless Nigel Stock makes a mistake, that puts an end to Cleaver's charge for 13th position. As we go back up to Blomqvist following Shahabi. But we also, a little further back, have Joe Pinder trying to catch up to Peter Stather behind, as Stather has just come out of the pits. But you would expect Stather to maybe pull away there, of course. Has more pace, qualified in P5, did the Porsche driver, but obviously now finds themselves 11 spots further back in 16th place.
Indeed, it does. Right. What's happened to Chavez? Oh, he's off! P6 is off!
One of our championship contenders sitting in P6. Luckily for them, had a massive gap behind them to the Porsche of Stefan. Will hold on to P6 here, but will not have as much of a comfort margin. If they make another mistake this race, they could lose that place. Someone who is losing places, though, is Ben Holmes. That's another mistake for them this time, down at the Dunlop hairpin. As we now see them through turn 10 now into turn 11, or turns, turn 11 onto the back straight, just spins round trying to put the power down.
That is mighty peculiar. Nothing out of the ordinary, just maybe the right foot getting a little bit too exuberant, and the rear end of that Mustang not agreeing with the demands that the driver was requesting of it. And Shahabi, however, has been able to close that gap now down within a second to Noah Osbaldeston, but goes deep into turn 7, and now down to the hairpin, and it's now leveled out back to around about that 1 second.
Shahabi was 7 tenths quicker than Osbaldeston last time around, so closing the gap. Just over 10 minutes to go. Try and get an idea here as Aidan Carter not too far away from the line, coming up to complete the 27th lap of the race. It looks like there will be 5 laps to go from the end of this lap, to give you a sense of how much time is ticking away. Elvin Blomqvist a little bit slower than Noah last lap, which isn't ideal for them. They'll want to be on the tail end of this fight, trying to pick up any pieces that may come from it. Take advantage of any opportunities as we see through the chicane. Shahabi closes up in the braking zone, but Noah slightly better line through the chicane, opens it back up on the exit through the final corner now. I will get another set of lap times for them. The time for Noah, a 2-minute 11.1, but it's 0.6 quicker for Shahabi behind. That gap continues to close. Blomqvist still going slower as Ben Holmes has had an issue, and it's been very costly for them, as it's cost them not only a lot of positions down at the hairpin once again, but it has picked them up enough incident points for a drive-through penalty.
That front end looks a little bit broken when we saw the live pictures. Let's go down to a replay. Into the hairpin he goes, and around he goes. Now, does he inadvertently make contact with another car? No, he just keeps on going, and I think if he did have any front end damage, it may be just superficial. The front end did look a little bit... Oh no, it looks... yeah, it looked a little bit off in that in that replay, but I think we're alright.
But Tofson as well, down in 20th position, has a drive-through penalty, but they will still come out in front of Jarrett Page, as we see what happens here down into turn 6. The right-hander, maybe just too much on the inside, picked up the curb in the white line, and as they then went to pick up the throttle, it was enough to spin the car around. That might have cost them an opportunity in 19th place, but fighting at the tail end for the track is not going to be a great result either way. Meanwhile, a battle for 7th place. Stefan had a slow lap last time round, 2:17.1, losing about 5 seconds, maybe making a mistake themselves after Chavez in front of them made a mistake, maybe getting a little too opportunistic, thinking, oh, maybe I can get P6 here, but is now fighting for P7. Ben Royal now in the Porsche is through, and Alex Shahabi is off the track, has made a mistake themselves. Elvin Blomqvist coming up, trying to get past, but Shahabi will just shut that door as they head through the chicane. But now 3 seconds back from Osbaldeston. That has maybe secured a podium for the McLaren driver.
Through the fast right-hander, there's a twitch. He tries to save it. Goes very much off circuit. And that is unfortunate. Now let's just see if I could do something just to get an idea of what actually it was like for him in the car. We'll go on board. He goes white line on left, dips a couple of tyres. That drags the car off. And then he's going to have to then turn into the corner, gets it all tidied up. That's cost him a chance for the podium.
Though is lucky and did very well to not lose 4th place with a moment as big as that. Everyone else we've seen with a similar moment has gone for a full 360, has had a spin. Not Shahabi. They caught the car, they kept in a straight line, couldn't keep it on the circuit, but it was enough to hold on to P4. They will have one last charge to try and take a podium position. They've already closed the gap down to 2.5 seconds once again, but will it be enough? Time is running out. There's only about 3.5 laps remaining. Every corner is crucial here, but the gap, look, it's already down to 2.3. Another couple of tenths closed in.
This car is twitching so much through the puddles. He is going through the apex. That's not going to help him. You can see where the puddles are, and then especially the Schumacher S's, he's really using the curb and unsettling the car. That's hurting him. And if my suspicions are correct, he's using too much inside the curb here, going through the fast right-hander. He doesn't this time round. But again, that Ferrari just looking, especially these fixed setups where the downforce is set for dry racing, maybe not suiting Shahabi's preference per se for maybe a bit more of a stable car in these conditions.
Or perhaps Shahabi isn't wanting to settle for anything. He's trying to push, give it everything they can, taking risks to catch up to Osbaldeston as they come across the line. You can see they're 1.6 seconds quicker. They could close in with 3 laps to go. They still have a chance here at the podium. Issues for Ben Royal, who recently just got past Stefan for P7, now finds themselves in the wall on the exit of the kink. gets the car reversed out. And luckily, with a massive gap to Philip Staples down in 9th place, can see just a little too much on the inside, and that rotates the car round. They try and save it, they're not able to. Oh, and does just clatter the wall with the rear left tyre. Hopefully the suspension damage isn't too bad, but they'll have to get the car round for another few laps to bring it to the finish. It might be difficult, but that's now mistakes we've seen from 6th, 7th and 8th position all in a row, trying to chase each other down, and all of them making mistakes. Now back to the fight for third. Shahabi within a second once again. A little bit of lapped traffic in front. That's Joe Pinder, who is, I believe, is teammates to Alex Shahabi. So will you would imagine not slow down the Ferrari at all, but might not be as forgiving, let's say, to the McLaren, who's the first to catch them. Matt Cleaver will be the next driver to pick up a penalty for instant points. They'll come into the pits from 13th place, and that will likely lose them a couple of positions towards the kink now, side by side. Pinder will back out, but Shahabi getting on to the outside curb. The car sliding around, but will now go for a move late, so much later on the brakes. Keeps the nose to the inside of the second part. Kind of has to cut the curb a little bit to not hit the side of the McLaren, but it is certainly pressure on. The fight is on for the final podium position as they come through the final corner. It will be 2 laps to go as they cross the line. In the background, Elvin Blomqvist trying to get past Pinder as well, to be ready in position to take advantage of any casualties that may come from this battle. Into T1 now. Noah seeming comfortable enough through here and opening up a bit of a gap to Shahabi, and Shahabi's actually losing a bit of time, and that's allowed Blomqvist to close up quite a lot. I wonder if Shahabi got a slowdown or something, because that was very abnormal. But Blomqvist right on the tail end of Shahabi. That could be the end of their fight for P3.
Could be. Only 2.5 minutes left. I think that's going to be it. Only 1 and a bit laps to go. Oh, it's a massive off of Blomqvist! By some miracle, just manages to keep it out of the barrier.
Matt Cleaver has had another issue after coming out of the pits. Let's see, just gets on the white line. You see immediately the car not slowing down. They turn in for the corner, but with still tyres on the white line, does not have the grip, and the car goes spinning around. Joe Pinder, who they just lapped, now has a drive-through penalty for incident points, and Matt Cleaver down to 16th place after their mistake. You'd see just white line on the inside of the corner, unsettling the car, putting them into the left-hand side wall, and that will be enough for that drive-through penalty. And now Chavez off once again, this time at the Dunlop hairpin. Will get going again, but you can see how much the drivers are struggling. The tyres reasonably worn at this point, but just as he turns the car in, the rear end not able to hold on. Goes for a spin, facing the wrong way. We'll get going again now. The gap 5 seconds to Stefan. Another mistake like that, and it will be, and they'll be saying goodbye to P6. As we go up to Thomas Wright, currently sitting in second place, as Elvin Blomqvist has another mistake, this time at the chicane, not able to get the car slowed down, and will cut the corner. Noah Osbaldson seeing all of the action in the rear view mirror, spurring them on to a new personal best, a 2-minute 10.488. Not too far from the other drivers' best laps in this race. If only they had that pace a little earlier on, they maybe could have fought in for a top 2 position. And here is Blomqvist's mistake, just a little too late on the brakes with the damage they have now, and not able to slow the car down and having to shortcut the chicane.
Yep, absolutely. And we are now on the final lap. And this man here has been relatively unfazed by the challenges that have been faced towards him this evening. He's had challenges from other drivers, the weather. He's been able to come out on top. Some battles still happening up and down the field. Peter Staver is actually quite close to Sean McArdle as they are fighting away through the Schumacher S's down through they're risking it in the puddles. They need to be careful. But as Aiden Carter is coming to the final parts of the circuit, we'll just try and keep an eye on this batter. Staver around the outside, surely not.
Look at that confidence, finding the grip off the traditional racing line. It'll be enough to take 14th place with just mere corners to go. But coming up to the final corner now, they've been the most confident driver. They've been one of the quickest throughout the race, but it hasn't been enough to stop them from spinning. But still quick enough. They'll take the win. Aiden Carter to win the penultimate round here at a very soaked Nurburgring GP circuit. They'll take another 1-2 for America, who looks to solidify a potential championship here. Joe Pinder trying to fight for P17 will take it on the track potentially, but does have a drive-through penalty that will drop them back. Thomas Wright potentially challenging for the lead. Too many mistakes would drop them down to second place. Noah Osbaldson fended off Alex Shahabi at the end, and with another personal best on the last lap, will round off the podium. Alex Shahabi, instant at the start of the race, they would recover quite well, but potential for a podium would go awry. They'll settle for P4. Joe Pinder will hold on just in front of Ivan Orlov as Elvin Blomqvist takes a very respectable P5 on their first wet race on iRacing. Very commendable performance, even with a couple of mistakes themselves. As you can see, flashing across the line, and a little bit of nudging as they come across as well. Joe Pinder does have the better on track over Orlov, but that penalty will swap those positions around. Daniel Chavez will take P6 and will likely lose second in the overall Drivers' Championship with that result. Stefan will be 7th as Charlie Morgan, reminding us that just because it's last lap doesn't mean it isn't too late for another mistake. They go off at the kink, somehow managing to stop the car from going for a spin there. That will be enough to hold on to P10, but as you can see there, the puddle just sending the car sideways. I want to know how much angle did Charlie Morgan get in that slide. It won't cost them any positions. Eventful way to end the race. They'll hold on to the last top 10 spot. Yuri Shur will just miss out in P11 with Nigel Stock, last of our cars on the lead lap, will take P12.
Indeed he will. And that, folks, is our penultimate round done and dusted. As we go to the results for this penultimate round here at Nurburgring, Aiden Carter takes the win from Thomas Wright, Noah Osbaldson in 3rd, Alex Shahabi 4th, Elvin Blomqvist 5th, Daniel Chavez in 6th, Stefan and Gambi 7th, Royal 8th, Philip Staples 9th, Charlie Morgan round up your top 10, 11th, Jory Scorer, 12th, Nigel Stock, Ben Holmes 13th, Peter Staver in 14th, Sean McArdle in 15th, Matt Cleaver 16th, Ivan Orlov in 17th, Joe Pinder in 18th, and then Berton for Terry in 19th, Bottleson 20th, Jared Pace 21st. Sadly, Mike Pfeiffer's having more issues than it is worth having to race, and will classify as 22nd, but sadly 12 laps down from the lead.
Looking at the nation's battle in those results, it would be another American 1-2. But despite that, Europe trying to fight back. They would take 7 of the top 10 positions. 355 points, remember, is the gap coming into this round. North America over Europe. How much will it have closed in by? Is it enough for Europe to have a chance into our final round? Our wet race of the season, it certainly delivered as it usually does. The drivers struggled, but they got through to the end. Next time, we will be heading.
Trying to get a nice replay for our background. Ignore me. But it's definitely not working.
Are you trying to say the rain isn't nice?
No, I'm not. I'm just trying to do something fancy with the overlay, but it's not going to work for us, so fine, we'll leave it be. Yes, apologies, a very wet, rain-soaked Nürburgring. was our penultimate round, all done and dusted. But as you said, final week next week for this season's of iRacing. But we are off to Le Mans, Circuit du Sarthe, full Le Mans circuit. I can't wait for that. That's going to be a very interesting race.
It will be very interesting. Europe will need another strong result. Will want to win that race to give them the best chance at taking the nation victory over America. And maybe thinking back, the only race so far that Europe has won was at Daytona. One similarity between Daytona and Le Mans, they both have high speed, top speed sections, not necessarily straight at Daytona, but certainly straight at Le Mans as you head down Mulsanne and then away from Mulsanne towards Indianapolis. Maybe that will give Europe some hope for the final round. See how much can they overcome North America, who have been so dominant through the middle portion of the season. Can they flip things around here at the end? I won't be joining you next week. Johnny Ashley will be taking my place as I'm away next weekend, but the action will be just as great. In between now and then, we have some more great racing action coming back on Sunday. We have the penultimate round of our 100 series. That will be at a wonderful and challenging Fuji circuit. See how that evokes the challenge of strategy in the 100 series as the full field of hypercars do battle in on LMU. Then on Monday, we have our GT3 MPG, the start of our final week of Season 4 in 2025 at oNiD Racing. And much like what we have here on iRacing, the Mon Ultimate will be visiting the Circuit du Sarthe on Monday. That Monday will see the Mulsanne circuit, no chicanes on the long straight. For 2 times fuel usage, he'll be very thirsty on the field. Will make for some interesting strategy. See how the GT3 drivers deal with that challenge on Monday. Then on Tuesday, we have the 5th and penultimate round, thanks to a week delay. It'll be the second and final sprint format for the AC British Stock Car Championship at the High Speed Thruxton. It'll be fantastic. 3 20-minute races, the third of which is a reverse grade. So plenty of action. Make sure to tune in then on Tuesday. And on Wednesday, our SimHound Academy returns to the Mon Ultimate for its final round of the season. They will also be at the Mon. See how the rookies and less experienced drivers on the Mon Ultimate deal with the home of the 24 Hours of Le Mans for their 50-minute stint, where strategy will be once again important and maybe a little bit different to what they're used to all season long. And that's before we return on Thursday with our Transatlantic GT3 Showdown at Le Mans itself as well.
Cannot wait. Folks, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your support. If you want to get involved, discord.gg/oNiD Community Racing. Put that into your web browser. That'll take you to our Discord. Also, come and follow us on SimGrid, join the community, and be ready for signing up for our next league, rotational leagues, in a couple of weeks' time. Until then, I will say goodnight. Scotty, thank you so much for the season. Considering you won't be here next week, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your company. It has been the utmost joy to have you here on a Thursday night.
It has been brilliant watching everyone struggle through the fixed setups of these GT3s. I hope they can I know they're going to put on a show at Le Mans, but I'll see you again next Tuesday.
Until then, folks, take care, have a wonderful evening, and don't worry, folks. Friday is just around the corner, and it's a weekend. One more day to go. Take care, look after yourselves, and we'll see you all very, very soon.